Brennan is a corporate lawyer in the software sector, and he's the chairman of East Cooper Democrats. Now he's a Democratic candidate for South Carolina House District 112. I talk one-on-one with Peter about the issues for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Peter Brennan, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. I know you reached out to me a couple of weeks ago because you wanted to be interviewed for Quintin's Close-Ups because obviously you're a Democratic candidate for South Carolina House District 112. And as we sit here right now, Peter, after redistricting, of course, what parts of that district does that cover?
So they reshaped it after 2022. So now it includes, and I'm pointing because I can see it, Isle of Palms, right?
Sure.
Sullivan's.
Sure, yeah.
Out this way is Almondale, and
Sure.
then almost all of Mount Pleasant below 17. All right, so between the water and 17 is really so all the way out to the harbor. So
wow,
it's actually a pretty big district. So.
Yes, sir. Big district. So it's a big district. So why now for this particular seat?
All right, so there's a little history there. I became the chair of the East Cooper Democrats a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Sure.
And I started having candidates come in and people come in and speak. And I got to know the party chairman, Sam Scardon. And one day I'm sitting in my car dealership getting something fixed. And my phone rings and it's Sam. And Sam says, Peter, we need someone to run in 112. Who do you think could do it? And we started kicking around, what was needed. But what he really was doing, he was recruiting me to run. So, and I put it together after the phone call. Then I talked to him later, said, look, I'm not going to run. Let's see if someone else is going to run. I mean, because there may be people with a real drive to get out there and run for office. But he didn't. He stopped looking. Nobody put their hand up. And so on the morning of the day, the filing deadline, I get a phone call from Sam because, Peter, you're running? I said, yeah, I'm on my way to the office to file my paperwork. So, and my initial reluctance was just that I wasn't going to have time to do it. But certain events took place, right? The abortion ban law took hold, right? I call it a ban. Some people call it a 6-week ban, but I call it a total ban, the fetal heartbeat. And then we expanded the open carry rights for handguns, which I thought was something that Mount Pleasant did not need, right? We don't need 18-year-olds driving around in their car with a unsecured handgun, right? So those two things really sort of drove me to get involved.
And I know obviously you've been a long time corporate attorney in the software sector, and of course you just mentioned you're the chairman of the East Cooper Democrats. But let me talk to you about obviously those two big topics that you just talked about. Let me go to abortion. People in the state that I talk to, Peter, asks if a woman is forced to have a baby by the South Carolina legislator and dies in childbirth, should the state of South Carolina compensate her family for the value of her life?
Well, that's a decision for the family, but yeah, I believe that the fetal heartbeat abortion ban is excessive, right? I've been endorsed by Planned Parenthood, as a matter of fact. My campaign's been endorsed. You're essentially taking a woman's right to make her own reproductive choices away from her, right? And implementing this sort of randomly picked time period, 6 weeks. To force her to make a decision before that at that point, right? So, so I'm not in favor of it. I think it should be a first trimester type of, at the very least, a first trimester decision. But in terms of legal liability for the injury to the mother, that's really for the courts to decide. But
let me ask you this then, Peter. Should South Carolina lawmakers consider punishing abusers with involuntary vaccinities instead of punishing victims with involuntary pregnancies?
Well, you frame it like that, yes. It would certainly make sense to look at it that way. But again, it's hard to assess liability in that situation. As a lawyer, I know, right? Because is there direct causation between the actions of the law and the what happens to the mother? You have to build a case around that. So,
what case would you build if you were to become a state lawmaker today?
Well, first thing I would do is to repeal that fetal heartbeat law, right? I would be in favor of that. And frankly, if I had the opportunity, I'd draft a law that gave women the right to make their own decision, right? So,
Yes, sir. And let me take you to another issue that's really going on right now. You just obviously mentioned it just a few seconds ago, and that is obviously the permitless carry bill that was passed earlier this year. And I want to take you to it because South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, that is, signed a bill allowing permitless handgun carrying into the law. That allows adults to carry loaded handguns openly with no permit or training. Adults 18 plus who can legally possess guns can now openly carry them with no permit or actually prior training.
right.
In your mind, Peter, does this bill affirms Second Amendment rights rather than expansions?
No, no. So there's a couple ways to interpret the Second Amendment, and one way is not to say that everyone's allowed to carry a gun, right? It's the right to bear arms, have a civil militia, to protect the state. But the expansion of the rights to have no training, no license, make it to kids that are 18 years old, allowed to drive around in a car with an unsecured handgun in your car. That's just an expansion of the gun rights that I don't think anyone really was in favor of, except for the extremist gun lobby, right? And if I became the representative from 112, I'd be concerned about the attempted to expand those rights even further, right? So they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop where they are now. The gun lobby. They're going to want more expanded rights. They're going to want no restrictions at all on carrying a weapon. Right now, you can't bring it into a restaurant. You can't bring it into a place where it has a sign on the wall. You're not supposed to bring them to sporting events. I mean, I live in Mount Pleasant. I never see anyone walking around with a handgun, right? It's just where we live. It's not a right that anyone really is clamoring for.
And as a footnote, Peter, the Bureau of Protective Services, which is an arm of the South Carolina Department of Public Safety, reminds the public that the passage of the constitutional carry is still illegal under the new law to carry guns in places where they couldn't carry them before, including schools, courthouse,
Right.
and of course the state house. In your mind, why didn't they just lift those particular restrictions with this particular bill?
Well, a lot of the people that voted for the bill work in the state house, and they don't want anyone coming in there with a gun. I suppose you could make that argument. I mean, I think it's instructive to note that most law enforcement officials were opposed to this expansion, right? Most sheriffs were opposed to it. Kristen Graziano was opposed to it. And it doesn't make anybody any safer to be able to carry a gun. It makes it more dangerous for the people that aren't carrying a gun or people that don't know how to use a gun. So.
Do you believe, Peter, that there are still infringements with this particular law that it just passed a couple of months ago?
I'm not sure I follow your question.
Yeah, as far as infringements with this particular law that they have, do you still believe that there's, still infringements with this?
Yeah, I mean, you can bring a handgun to the wrong place, right? You can brandish it at someone, right? Wave it around. You can and bring it into a place where they've posted signs saying that you're not supposed to have that handgun or carry it, have open carry. So but they're not sufficient restrictions. If that's what the basis of the question is, people shouldn't be able to carry an unlicensed handgun without training or a license or being a 21.
Now that this carrying obviously is openly legal, how could you know who's a convicted felon or not, who's legally carrying a restricted gun?
You really don't know, right? I mean, I think the rule is the cops aren't even allowed to approach someone unless they they have reasonable suspicion of the person should not be carrying that gun, right? So if I walk past the police station with my handgun, there's nothing they can do really to stop me, right? So.
And let me ask you, since this particular bill has signed obviously into law, Peter, how much has gun crime decreased in your district, 112?
They say it hasn't decreased at all, right? It hasn't impacted at all, to my understanding.
Okay. And quickly, I have a few more minutes left before I get to the next interview. But what exactly are the other needs right now when it comes to House District 112?
Well, aside from the abortion rule, right, and aside from the open carry, I'm also concerned about parental groups getting involved in what books are in the school libraries and our public libraries. I don't think there should be any kind of book bans. I don't think that the state superintendent, Ellen Weaver, and her rule saying that parents can challenge any books in any classroom, that's not something that we need here in Mount Pleasant. I don't think there's really that great of concern. The what they call themselves, the Moms for Liberty, that's an extremist group, and they're pushing their views on our school board, on our school districts, and I think that's an issue for us that we need to push back on.
And I hope to get a representative for Moms for Liberty on Quintin's Close-Ups to get their side of the story on that. But when it comes to those books, how many people or how many parents in Mount Pleasant have opted out of that option that the superintendent of education's office gave them?
Yeah, I don't have any numbers on that. I know I can tell you this. My daughter's a teacher in Mount Pleasant.
Okay.
And this summer she had to go in and do an inventory of all the books in her classroom and provide that list to the school board, right? So, and any parent can go in and has the right to go in and challenge. I mean, it has to be on a reasonable basis, but they can challenge any book that's in a classroom. So,
what of those books are being challenged right now that you're hearing about?
I've spoken to my daughter about it. She hasn't had any challenges yet. So,
wow.
So again, we create this right for parents, but no, there aren't really that many parents actually in the school district that are clamoring for that. But
well, Peter Brennan, thank you so much for your time again. Welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you.
Likewise.
All right.